And with that, I would like to introduce the founder and CEO of Remine, Leo Pareja, and Alfredo Morejon, who will be also teaching this course with Leo today. Gentlemen, the floor is yours. Thanks for teaching this class.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on, Kevin. All right. Am I the host? Can I share my screen?
I got you. There you go. Try it now.
Okay. Alfredo, I was just thinking of running through some of the basics, and you feel free to jump in and tell me which way you'd like to take it as well.
Absolutely, Leo. You got the floor, and maybe what I can do is touch on some of the stuff that I feel are really practical and maybe some of my favorite elements from Remine.
Perfect. Excellent. That sounds good to me. So if you guys can all see my screen now, I'm actually going to be jumping between both a Miami instance and the Bright MLS instance, where I still hold broker's licenses and am a dues paying member. The reason I'm doing that is because our system is designed only for realtors. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a backstory before we get into it, so you guys understand where we came from. So I was actually a member of YPN. I was a real estate practitioner for 15 years. I started selling real estate at 19 years old in the DC metro market. And by the time I was 28, I was ranked the #1 Keller Williams agent in the world. 2010, I sold 603 transactions in 12 months, which was my best year ever. But I did an average of 400 to 600 transactions for about 8 years in a row. And I've always been obsessed with doing more with less. So when I was doing 400 to 600 deals a year, I was doing it with less than 10 people on my team. I was building my own technology. I was doing and using a lot of different data. And so what you see as Remine, as all members of Miami Association of Realtors, was born strictly out of frustration. And it was born out of wanting to do more, from being, in the car, stuck in traffic. Believe it or not, you guys actually do have worse traffic than us in DC. I didn't used to believe you until I moved down here. And for you, the ones that don't know, actually, Miami's my home as of last August. So I am local. So hopefully when this pandemic is gone, I can actually meet some of you guys face to face. But most of the technology that's around in real estate was born because someone had a bad transaction and they were frustrated and thought realtors didn't know what they were doing. And frankly, that's not the case. I was very disappointed with most technology. Most of the founders who build real estate technology have never sold a house, don't understand our true pain points. And so we were just trying to do more for ourselves and our team. And we actually showed it to a couple people. And very quickly, we found out that what we'd built was interesting to other realtors. And then we decided to turn into a software company. That was 4.5 years ago. We're now proud to say we have over 50 MLSs as customers. They happen to be the largest 50. So obviously you guys are a top 10 MLS across the country, but we're also live in California, Texas, Chicago, the DC region, all the way up to New York. So we're super grateful to have about 85% of all agents in the US now have access to Remine, which actually becomes a very, very good tool for you guys, because whether you're in a mastermind within a brokerage like a Keller Williams or an EXP or Remax, or you show up to a Tom Ferry event or a Brian Buffini event, or whatever it is you follow, and GSD mode with Joshua Smith, whatever it is, you're finding peer groups that are using our technology in a different way. And I'm actually super excited to have Alfredo on, because I actually love hearing local practitioners using it and how they're using it, how they see it. I've been on stages. I was doing a presentation in Michigan once to about 1,000 agents, and this one lady kept interrupting me with use cases, and I actually asked her to jump on stage, and I gave her the microphone. She taught the rest of the class because she had really interesting ways that she was using the data. So I think that backstory is important, because most of us don't appreciate or have the experience to have interacted with someone who actually sold homes and had just had a software background. So as you can see, I'm logged into a Bright instance, the Bright instance. Your guys is miamirealtors.remine.com, or you can just jump into it from your Clarity dashboard. Your login and password is always your MLS credentials. We are an MLS only deployed technology. The second you log into Remine, you land on this daily page. And again, if you guys bear with me, I'll just give you a quick run through, then I'll give you some really good nuggets on how to use the application. But this is completely customizable for your taste. So you can switch out. So your listings will obviously be your listings driven off your MLS ID. Market Pulse, you can enter a zip code. You can rotate from 1 to 7 to 30 days. Engage is something I'll cover here in a second. You can add a Twitter feed, listing updates for a zip code, as well as property notifications that you may be keeping track of in your carts, and I'll explain that, as well as save searches. So the first thing I point out to everybody is the heavy lifting inside of our technology is inside of the main search page. And a lot of people look at it and sometimes think it looks not complicated, which is the goal. So a couple of things I'll point out is here are our workflows, which I'll cover in detail. Here are our filters that are our layer filters. And then we have some filters over here that you can have as your short bar, also as an advanced. Very important to note, because I know commercial is a very important part of your guys' market, is that you can actually toggle and have different status searches. And this is all off MLS IDs, MLS data between commercial and residential. But for the most part, we're just looking at residential today. You can have as many of these as you want on your shortcuts. And then the search bar. The search bar is one of the most powerful things we have because it's omnipresent, if you will, onto all the data sets. So when you're looking at Remine, understand that it does what a full public record system, i.e. your IMAP, your Realist, CRS, and other markets, in addition to everything an MLS system does. So it is a full alternative front end. So this search bar lets you query all the data in the database all the time. And it does it in what's called fuzzy search or elastic search, which is what you're way more used to using with modern technology, i.e. a Google search or something like that. So a couple of examples of that. It's pretty important to understand the distinction. So if I just start typing an address, which is what we normally would type in inside of MLS system, it starts auto-completing. So the first thing you notice is as I'm typing, it's completing. I don't need to do an asterisk, a catch-all, anything else like that. And then it starts auto-suggesting properties inside of that MLS coverage footprint. That's a very important thing to distinguish because your pro version actually has full nationwide search. So there's somewhere north of 150 million public records inside of the United States. You have access to all of them in all 50 states. Somebody asked me to slow down. I apologize. Thank you. Give me feedback real time because I do get excited when I start talking about the product. And so I do get carried away and talk a bit fast. The question, great questions. I want to be able to keep the flow, but I do want the questions because they're really good in real time. Somebody was asking, does this come with the MLS or requires a subscription? So excellent question. This fully is included. There is nothing I'm showing you that is not part of your MLS. So back to where I was saying, it's a full search. I'm logged in Bright MLS. So when I'm typing in this property, it's only showing me those properties. But if I was a nationwide search, it adds a lot more and it actually shows me stuff closer to where I'm physically sitting because the software knows where you're currently physically standing. So, but for the example, I'm actually pulling the last property that I sold in DC before I moved down to Miami and joined you guys. So you can actually just click on the little map icon if you want to, and it physically flies there on the map for you to see where you are. This is very important because what we've done is we've put a geo. Somebody saying, can everybody see my map? Are you guys? No. Yes, yes, yes. I'm seeing more yeses. Okay. Yes. I'm going to go with yes. As you can see on the map, we're using a Google base layer map. And what we've done is we've put in geocentroid on every parcel and then done geo bounds around every single parcel. So that will be very important when I show you the data layers. But for the sake of this, I just wanted to show you can physically go there, like a Lincoln Avenue is something you would find in just about every city in the country. If you want information on a specific property, you click into that property address, or you had clicked into it directly from the search bar. It automatically opens up in a new page, which is right here, separate than your search. So that's actually a pretty big distinction on other pieces of technology, not to name names, but when you click into an address, it takes you to a next screen, and then you get lost because you can't find where you were clicking previously. But in the new map, in the new page, it actually shows you, this is a full property detail like you would find in a IMAP RPR public record. It on top of that conflates any previous MLS information. So if the property traded more than 6 months ago, which is what you need for a comp, it assumes it's just public record data and calls it off market. But if you click into it, it actually pulls the last MLS pieces of information. It's got the MLS ID, days on market, the closing date. It's got all the pictures right from the MLS. So this is the previous MLS pictures, public remarks, agent remarks, showings, instructions. It's got the listing agent, the co-listing agent, the listing agent. Anytime you see the blue in Remine, it is a live hyperlink. If you click into it, it actually takes you to a profile of the listing agent, and it actually gives you a result for all their closed transactions active or under contracts, which I always joke and say that you can mentally prepare yourself to do both sides of the transaction and only get paid for one, or you can, be prepared that they're pretty sophisticated like my previous listing agent was. It has the entire details of the transaction, all the sold info. All of this is coming from the MLS database. But then we have all the public record information, everything else that we provide as well. So we bring in AVMs. We bring as many as we can get our hands on. First American, Black Knight, Redfin. Public record data information. This is what you would typically find in any other competitive public record system, with additional data that we bring in. So for example, if you keep scrolling down, you'll find active mortgage information. So we'll give you the starting mortgage balance, the date that loan was originated, the terms. And then again, EST means an estimate. So anytime you see an estimate, it's some algorithm we built in-house, and we'll tell you exactly how we built it. So we take a guess at the current mortgage balance, assuming a 30-year fixed mortgage. When I sold my house, I had about an $875,000 balance, and our estimate was within $1,500. Again, if it's a 15-year term or a HELOC, a line of credit, obviously we don't know that because that's a private document, but we're just showing you what the maximum balance it could be. School information is brought in by niche.com. And again, most of the time, if you click in on the logo, we give you a hyperlink that takes you directly to where we're getting the data. If you scroll down further, here are the demographics information. This is down to a zip +4 resolution. Property history. This is literally why I started the entire company. I wanted more transparency into the information. And this is pretty interesting to me. I bought a double lot. I tore it down and built 2 new homes. So this is the beginning of time from this lot. This is when I created the second lot. I then built the homes, and I transferred one of them from our company name and one to my wife and I's name. A couple years later, we put it into a family trust when we created a family trust and moved all of our assets. Then when we listed it on the MLS, this is an MLS listing transaction. So closed, MLS ID, list and sell price. But this is actually when the transfer happened at the courthouse. So Virginia is a dry settlement state where you can settle and then the deed gets recorded afterwards. Maryland, DC happened the same day. So it depends on the state, but you can actually see the date it transferred on the MLS. So the close date per the MLS, and then when it actually traded at the courthouse. Somebody's asking a question, which I think is very relevant. So I'm going to answer it right now. For the commercial side, do you pull from the MLS or the deed records as well? So this is a very important thing to note. The answer is both. So when you're seeing the lighter blue color here that says transaction, that is public record, the deed records. And then the darker blue is the MLS data. And so again, that would be specific to that market that we have the data. So you guys have public record data through your Remine Pro instance in the entire country. And we're going to go into detail because that's a very important feature here in Miami, versus you only have MLS data for Miami Association of Realtors, if that makes sense. If you tab over to mortgage, we have that same historic information, which tells a story as well. So as I told you, I bought a double lot, tore it down. I actually borrowed private capital, tore it down because it was a distressed deal and I had to close on it super fast. I then took out new construction residential financing right here. When I built the homes, once I got my occupancy permit and declared it my primary residence, I did a rate and term refinance and rolled into my closing costs. This is actually the next borrower's information when you can match up the dates and see when he bought the property. Tax bill and assessment information, assessments, all that stuff's right in there. I took my time explaining what's included in the public record because when I go back to the map and I show you how the tips and tricks to make some wow your customers, that's really important. From this page, you can add this to a cart, which I'll explain in detail, so don't worry about that. You can share any piece of information inside of Remine with your customer. So that's very important because that's one of the things that makes Remine so powerful. So before you guys get started on Remine, please go to your name down here at the bottom left and set up your profile in the settings. It's basically like you're creating a quick landing page for you to be able to share MLS data. So think of those old school links that a older MLS system would send where it's just a hyperlink. By setting up a profile, you're actually making a mini portal. It's a private portal, not a public portal. So I always say that's very important to distinguish the two for you to share, whether it's public record or MLS information or safe search information with one of your customers. You can hit print very quickly. If you don't want your customer to see the Redfin logo, you can just uncheck it. If you don't want them to see any of the AVMs, you can uncheck that. But you can, change the name and then you hit print really quickly. And then you have an elegant PDF that you can either print or email and take with you for the customer to see. You can hit CMA. It actually keeps track of all the CMA. So I demo this property quite a bit because I know the whole history of the property. But if you're doing a demo for a customer who's taking their time on making a decision, it keeps and logs all of it for you. Anytime the software is running in the background. So if you saw, I just continued looking at the data without delaying, but here is the full PDF that you can take with you. I would encourage you to use this every single time you're about to go on a listing appointment because you're then asking information like, hey, is this correct? Is this the right bedroom count? Is this the square footage that you understand it to be? A lot of times when you can just show them what you think the net equity is, or, hey, does this mortgage balance look correct to you? That's a yes or no question, which is much easier for people to answer than versus what is your mortgage balance, which people may say, I don't remember, or I'm not going to tell you. When you click into the CMA, it is a 2-click CMA in the sense that it automatically draws a radius. You can adjust anything you need. You can do a custom draw, but let's just say for the sake of the example, you were happy with those things. It returns the comps you like. You remove the ones you don't. You keep the ones you do. You hit save and continue. We have a drop down of the national brands, but you can hit a custom and make your own colors immediately that you only do once and save it. Then you hit save and continue, and you have a digital version of a CMA, as well as you can hit print and create a PDF that you can, again, email and send out to your customer whenever you see fit. So back to the map, and I appreciate you guys bearing with me there through the very detailed kind of explanation of the data we have, because that is what really becomes interesting when you start looking at the data. So I showed you the detail on one piece of property, and I told you we have information on north of 150 million parcels. So we have over 3.5 billion rows of information inside of Remine for properties all over the country. It becomes extremely powerful because you can then visualize that data as you may have a different use case. And I love questions, so when we get to that part of it, Alfredo and I could probably handle a bunch of them. But think about being able to visualize, yes, this class is recorded. The data I just showed you right in the map. So look at this. If I hit property values, that's a visualizations of AVMs. That's a visualization of home equity, right? And the way we calculate home equity, and I'm always happy to give you guys the math or the formula that we create everything, is we take the estimate of that mortgage balance, and then we take an AVM and subtract the two. Ownership time is one of my top 2 favorite filters. This is how long someone's been on title. So as I told you, I bought that house and tore it down. Right here, there's a whole bunch of interesting information, right? So this is the last holdout on the street, but there's some other double lots, and you can visually see them right there. So the average stat that all realtors are taught, the average American moves every 7 years, which over the last, since the Great Recession, moved up to every 9 years. That's just an average. Realistically, we know that people will spend 4 years on average in a move-up neighborhood, that condo townhouse, you know, where they cohabitate with a partner. They potentially make little people. Then you need that bigger house, preferably in the better school district. And then you move into that house you can barely afford, and you stay there for 15 years until the kids move out to the university, and then you downsize. So everything's kind of that cycle of life. But where you can create your minimum and maximums for searching of the data, that becomes 10 times more powerful than taking averages. Cell score is a predictive analytic we use in-house, that we build in-house. This is comparable to your SmartZip, your offers, your Rebo Gateway, your Revaluate, your First.io. I actually only mention it and we include it, but frankly, as a practitioner and from talking to agents all over the country, this is probably the least interesting thing we have, because we have all the other filters that we calculate. Damien's asking about if the algorithm only works on houses. That is absolutely correct. Creating algorithms for commercial is substantially harder because everything's behind an LLC, and investor profiles differ greatly. Some buy and never sell, and then others trade equity as soon as possible. So great question. It only applies to Resi and Resi. So condos, yes, condos are included. Flood risk, again, our software is live all over the country. So this is very different depending on the part of the country you're in and where you're at. So in this part of the country, it's far more important than in, like, let's say Arizona or Texas. But again, we always keep the practitioner in mind, which is there's 3 statuses of flooding according to the FEMA flood map: low, medium, and high. Low and medium fall into the same bucket for insurability. So again, this is only built for realtors. So we put that into one bucket, and high goes into a different bucket because that's when you need additional insurance. So I do like to answer questions as they're real time. So can you farm with Remine? Absolutely. It's one of the best things we do best. And I'll explain that in a second. Not clear what the cell score shows. So and again, I do talk fast, so please stop me. Cell score low means we think that it's not going to sell anytime soon, and we call that more than 24 months out. Medium, we think they may sell in the next 18 months. And then high means we think we're going to sell in the next 12 months. If someone's having an issue, you can reach out to our support for anyone who needs help right there. If your instance is not working, this is a live support, and we can always jump right into it. So as I keep going down here, building type, single family condo, townhouse, multifamily, land use. So across the country, there is anywhere between 200 to 300 different zoning codes and/or land use codes. I'll cover condos in a little bit, so thank you for that question, as well as different ways of looking at the data. Just know that land use codes is taking everything and putting them into these larger food groups, if you will, of Resi commercial, just because it's all about the use cases. If you've ever been to a property and you're showing, say, this house, and there's a vacant piece of land right here, and your customer goes, what do you think they're going to do with that? And by the way, I encourage everyone, before we get off the phone, download Remine onto your phone. It is a full and total replication of the application, and it's synced, meaning if you save something, you look something up, and you look at it on your phone, when you get to your web browser, it's the same piece of technology. Unfortunately, a lot of the mobile to desktop experiences in the MLS technology don't sync up really well. So, and by the way, once you guys download your mobile app, our usage shows you go 80-20% between the two. So, oh my goodness, I'm not answering that question. Okay. Airbnb data. This is something we pull into the camera, into the technology real time, which is pretty cool. This is literally an Airbnb feed overlaid on top of the map. If you notice that the little flag is flying, not exactly on a parcel, that's working as designed. That's actually what software calls it, because Airbnb does not share the longitude, latitude in real time. So if you click into it, it actually goes exactly to the Airbnb page for that said property. Mortgage rates. So when available, or if we can model and predict it, we include it. Mortgage age. So how long that exact mortgage lien has been there, or if there is no mortgage. Last sales price. Distressed deals, which would be like a less pendants or a notice of foreclosure. But again, I always caution that that is actually only time it's appeared inside of the public record, which is typically too late. Lillian's asking, how accurate is the sales score? It's a great question. It's something we track every month. The last time we looked at it, it was 3.41 times better than a random guess. I always joke and say, I actually don't know what that means. We pay a lot of money to a bunch of data scientists to comprehend all that stuff, but it's very close to the competitors like First.io that just got acquired by Remax. Mike and I are pretty good friends. He's at 4 times better than a random guess. I'll harp on it. I personally don't focus on that one because as a local practitioner, you know what you want to do better. So with that said, let me show you a couple of MLS functionality, and then I'll get deep into some use cases on how I personally would have used the app as a practitioner. So I don't want to have you guys forget that this is a full public record system in addition to MLS. So for example, if I were to turn on MLS information right here, it turns into an MLS system, right? So I just turned off public record and I'm only looking at MLS information. I can say, show me sale versus lease. So I just want to make sure it's a lease. I want to go $1 million plus or year built, newer construction. Again, you can get really detailed. You can also go into the advanced tab here and have it look just like an MLS search that you're comfortable with. But as you're doing all this and you're selecting what you're looking for, Kevin, can you close Marva's? Someone's asking me to close a computer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can close it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. If I'm a Florida realtor, but I'm outside of the U.S. temporarily, notice I can't get into Remine through our association. Is there an IP? Yes, that is. We can correct that. We actually had issues when we first launched where people were trying to log in from countries that the U.S. does not want us giving access to, like Pakistan and Iran and certain parts of Mexico. So you can always send us a message and we can clear that up. So that's a very good question, very fair question to ask. So I appreciate that. So you can zoom in, zoom out as much as you want. And if you see these clusterings, it starts working like a Zillow or anything else would, where you'd have to zoom in, but all the properties are displayed here. But in this example, I'm just selecting these 5 properties. I'm going to add them to a cart, which I will explain here in detail. But I've already made a cart because I'm sharing these properties with Leo, who's my customer. I would add him to a cart. And this is an example where I've already created a cart and asked my customer to watch stuff. If my customer logs in, gets an email, they would then be able to see that I just put those 5 properties I saved with you guys and put it right into their cart. They also have a full mobile version or desktop version, and they can tell you by swiping left and swiping right what they like. right? Again, we believe in not creating behavior, but just having the behavior that people use. Yes, it does give you the option for satellite view, Raphael. So I'm just answering the questions in flight. But again, when I go into my carts and my customer is engaging with me and swiping left, which I literally did live for you guys, and swiping right, I'm also getting that feedback in real time, which becomes extremely powerful. You can share that one cart up to 15 times. So you could have mom, dad, kids, Tia, Theo, whoever needs to be on there, who's going to be your decision maker. And then you would have multiple hearts and dislikes on top of each other, so you could really see that. Engage. And again, this is part of your dues. This is not additional money. You can invite your customer into step one, which they need to be in your contacts. But what step one is this deep integration we did with Equifax that allows you to get them a free credit report. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost them anything. And it doesn't ding their credit. It's what's called a soft pull. They get a full PDF of their credit, and then you get this little bubble right here in what credit band they land in: excellent, good, poor, and so on. So your customer then has their own portal that allows them to search Miami listings with your attribution. So it would behave just like an IDX website. If they save stuff, if they like stuff, you're actually seeing their favorites. You're seeing if they're sharing any of it, if they're creating any saved searches. So that is where you engage with your customer. And docs is the last thing I'll show you before we get into some use cases, which is what I know you guys came for, but I really spend the time explaining how the application works so you guys can really maximize it. You can upload a PDF, add sign, signature, cross some stuff out, and it's all included. Nothing I'm showing you is any additional money. So, but back to the fun part where you guys were asking me, can you farm? Can you do that kind of stuff? So I did a lot of infill new construction when I was selling real estate. And so that was very important to me. So let me show you a couple of use cases on exactly how I was using the application to sell houses when I was selling real estate. So you can type in all kinds of fun stuff into the search bar. So the search bar is extremely powerful because it allows you to search by places, which is exactly what you think it is: a physical address or someone on title. So let me give you a couple examples since I'm on the search bar, and then we'll get into the use cases that I have planned out. So if I type in my full name, that is where I appear on title next to with my brother. This is where I co-sign my little brother's house. If I click people, this is my consumer profile, which is different, where I'm not on title, but I appear to be associated with the property. This is a rental property that I own. It's owned by our family trust. So I appear as a consumer there. I could search by MLS ID or tax number, but even as fun as if I search by agent inside of the roster table, because I still have a broker's license there, and I click into it, you can actually see my entire profile as an agent in that MLS when I was selling homes at scale. And when I stopped selling to run Remine, I created a referral company, but it's got all my previous listing sites closed inside of that MLS. I belong to 6 MLSs up in the DC market. So those are the 1976 listings that were under my name while I was practicing real estate down there. You can also search by an office. Now, this is the really interesting part. Yes, you can use Remine for rentals right there under listing type. You would see leases right there. So keep coming with the questions. I'll try to weave them in as much as I can so I can give you a demo and answer questions real time. That's a good question about the client out of country. I'm almost sure the answer is yes. If you have a problem, feel free to email me directly, leo@remine, and I'll be glad to look into something. Unfortunately, at the current time, this does not include Fort Lauderdale board listings. I would love for you guys to reach out to your folks in Fort Lauderdale and tell them to share. Miami Association of Realtors is very much willing to share because Fort Lauderdale has Remine as well. So as much love about the questions, awesome. But watch this. The second I hit nationwide search, we actually start searching everything in the whole country. So you can actually see other properties that appear. Yes, if there's any issues with any data, please open a ticket, and we sincerely jump on that, and we take that very seriously, because there could be a feed issue or something like that. So I want to make sure that that's all there. Yes, all the MLS information on a Miami Association closed pending should all be in there. And if it's not, I want to know about it. But back in Falls Church, this is an area that I used to do a lot of business in. I knew the building rules, the building types. So let me just pick a city that I wanted to demo. And then I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to have Alfredo jump in here in a second, and I'll even go to Miami. So I just put in Falls Church. This is an area where I used to buy land and develop stuff. The second I put in some requirements, this becomes almost like your Zappos bar. You can see what you're adding. My email is leo@Remine, and I'll just type it right into the chat real quick so you guys can have it. I'm more responsive than people would suspect. So here is a town. You're always in real time seeing what you're tracking right here. So 4,729. I don't actually know the answer to the Keys MLS. Maybe you guys have a data share. Maybe somebody on the Miami side could answer that question. So 4,729 is still way too many houses. Maybe I want to focus, especially for what I used to do, I would want maybe go a max of 1960, because I was looking for houses to tear down. So 2,084, that's a much better number. And if I really want to hone in on it, maybe I want to add my bath filter, because I want to find 3-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family homes, which in this submarket are physically obsolete, meaning that there's not a lot of value to them because they're going to get torn down. And then I want to say owner occupant, because I want to be able to do a door knocking campaign and a letter campaign. So now I got that down to 135 properties. So I'm going to select those 135 properties. And listen, let's just get real crazy and get it real specific. I want to actually make sure that none of those homes have a mortgage on them. That's 65. We started with 4,729 properties. We got down to 65 properties that are almost a perfect target for what I was looking for. I would then create a cart. Homes. Sorry, I'm typing into this chat box. Homes in Falls Church. I add those 65 properties to my cart, and then we go into the cart. So think of cart as your workspace. This could be used for farming, which is what the example I'm going to show you. This could be used. So MLK assemblage is actually every piece of property I still physically own in the DC metro market. I'm assembling a piece of land on Martin Luther King Boulevard, so hence how I labeled it. Vacant lots are included in Remine, so in today, not the future. So actually some of this is vacant land. So you just see that I don't have even a deliverable address on this one. So perfect timing on that question, Brenda, thank you. So I personally keep, this is my, I'm demoing my live account so you guys actually see how I use it. But back to the demo with those 65 properties I selected. You can hit export right here and take them to a CSV file. I actually don't know what that red line is. I must have done it with something inside of the Zoom presentation, and I don't know how to delete it. So I'll have to figure that out at a later time. But you just label the file however you want. You can actually select which pieces of data you want exported. Maybe you only want the address because you're going to be doing something else, but let's just hit export for everything. You'll see that it gives you a little signal that it is exporting and manipulating the data in a file that you'll be able to take with you. Yes, right now, if the phone numbers and emails are available, I just exported them, Lillian, because I put that in my feature set right there. And I love talking about accuracy of data. So contact information is probably the hardest thing we do. That's probably even harder than the predictive analytics. It's about 30 to 35% accurate, mostly landlines, and the emails tend to be older. Public record contact information gets extremely expensive, but if you guys are all paying attention, I would, again, I do these demos all over the country. Some agent gave me this website. If you guys want to write this one down, it's not that old of a company. It's 100% free. And I have not found a more accurate website. I always look myself up to validate the functionality of data. So real quick, I would hit download. I could see the CSV, and I don't know if you guys can see the CSV, or I'd have to reshare that screen. It just downloads a full CSV with everything that was exported there. You can also, do what the old school systems do. You can hit print mail label right there real quick, and then you have your very traditional mailing label available right there. Now, this was a feature that was very requested after we launched the application. Everybody said, hey, now that I have this Excel file with all these addresses, can you just send the mailers for me? So we spent quite a bit of time talking to agents, coming up with the best vendor. It so happens to be that the vendor's in Florida, so you guys actually would have probably one of the faster delivery times, is Rocket Print. So this actually, once you name the campaign, it takes the list we just generated together, sends it over to a drop ship mailing company. They've screened it and made it feel and look just like Remine. Because so by the way, Daniel's question, we do flag do not call list. I would, anytime you're using any other application, I don't represent, own, or have any ownership interest in TruePeopleSearch.com, so you would probably have to double check it yourself. But this is a immediate drop shipping company. You can set up all your colors. Yes, excellent question. Very quickly, I love dynamic pricing, so pay attention to this. On 65 mailers, you can see in real time that for your standard kind of 6x5 open house, just listed, just sold, as you change the dimensions, the price changes dynamically. So like if you, like for what I used to do, if I was going after those 65 homeowners who kind of hit my sweet spot perfectly, I might be sending them a yellow letter campaign. And for 65 pieces at $57.20, that's delivered envelope, piece of paper, yellow paper, red ink, and a stamp. From what I've been told and from my research, this is as good as it gets. Yes, Ashley, you got it. What we did is we actually went to the printing company and said, as our consumers, our customers order more stuff, I want it to get cheaper. So just, if you're sitting here at your computer and doing a 65 piece mail out, just know that you're paying what the volume that we go weekly is, which I think right now we're up to about 25,000 pieces of mail going out per week across the country, because they're all there. Someone said, repeat the name of the printing company. I don't actually need to, because all you do is when you're in your cart, you select the properties, you hit send mailers right here. So don't worry about the name of the company. It's called Rocket Print Mail, but just know that you literally just create your cart and then you hit it. Is there any way to get all the numbers and emails without looking them one by one? Yeah, absolutely. When you hit export out of any selection, there'll be a column on your Excel spreadsheet that has that in there. But again, I am giving you the caveat, and you're hearing it from my mouth, that the contact information is not our greatest strength, because if we had made that our greatest strength, the product would be cost prohibitive. It'd be like $800 a month, which is what PI level of contact information costs. So I'm super transparent. I give out my personal email and cell phone number because I'm happy to get the good news and the bad news, but I'm just giving you that caveat. But going back to the list, you can keep tracking property. So, I mean, use cases galore. If you have a customer who, you've all had that conversation with a customer that says, hey, I'm not interested in moving unless you find me a house in this neighborhood, around this lake, around this river, around this waterfront neighborhood, something that doesn't trade very often, whatever it may be, you've had those conversations. If I hop in here into Miami, let's say somebody was asking me literally the other day they work with investors, and apparently Miami Gardens has a lot of activity. I select Miami Gardens. I may say ownership type, I want more than 20 years. I want to make sure they're owner occupant. And I want no mortgage. And then you're slicing and dicing the information in real time as fast as possible. And like I warned you guys at the beginning, I talk fast, but I got so much stuff I want to share. I want to stop right here. Alfredo, I didn't want to monopolize the conversation. I know you're a pretty good user of technology, or is there stuff you want to jump in on right now?
You're hard to follow, Leo. So yeah, you know, I use Remine a lot. One of the things I love about it is I'm also a big fan of IMAP, and what this does, it integrates IMAP. It's I can do most of the IMAP stuff here. What I do want to do is, you covered so much, and I know I use it. I can just imagine what's going on in other people's heads here. If maybe we can do a practical approach from A to Z. For example, if someone's farming an area right now, maybe I was just doing Miami Gardens a couple hours ago. If it's okay with you, maybe we can walk through a zip code in Miami Gardens and show everyone that's here present how they can use Remine to their advantage, and maybe segment their mailers and really engineer their messages specific to the property type or the homeowner type.
Perfect. And real quick, I just want to answer a couple more questions that came
Sure.
in as you were talking. So the mailing company lets you customize everything you want. So colors, specs, everything else, you just need to do it once. Thank you. I do agree. It's very dynamic. So engage is where you monitor the activity. So just think about carts is your workspace. This is where you get to create, you know, houses to watch, Miami. So literally I have this label here, houses to watch, because there's some houses I'm looking at now that I'm down here in Florida. But this is where your workspace, whether it's internal or to be shared. And engage is once you're engaging with one of your customers and you're seeing, so if you see my production instance for Miami doesn't have the data that my real account has. And that should be comforting. Even as the founder of the company, inside of the demo account, I actually don't have all the MLS functionality that you guys do as real account holders. We don't actually create login and passwords for any one of the users in the entire country. That is strictly controlled by the MLS login and passwords. So, so the question about the engage, this is where you can see your customers' interactions once you've shared information with them. And somebody did say, is there a cost? No, the cost does not exist. And yes, your clients do have to create a login and password, but then they're married to you. So they only see your information. It behaves just like IDX information. And the question always comes up, what happens if that customer stops working with them? The customer can go in there and switch the agent right here with this big button. So sorry about that. I just wanted to answer as many questions as I could. So let's start with a zip code in Miami Gardens, Alfredo.
Sure thing. Let me get you one right now. Let's do 33054.
33. What was it?
054.
So as you see, it also suggests all kinds of other stuff that could happen there, right? So you could also see schools in that area. You could see addresses with that. So, but you're creating the bound. So again, immediately it draws a lasso around the parcels, and in totality, that zip code has 8,606 property results.
So for myself, one of the things I like to do is maybe create a personal bound. I know you can do that there. You can do your own custom boundary.
Yep.
Maybe we can do the top corner there, Bunch Park.
So we have all the shapes that come in any lasso kit, but you can do it manually as well. So, and great addition there, because if you ever do something that you don't like, you just go back up here to your bar and you delete. It behaves very much like Zappos was what the feature I was envisioning when I was explaining this to the engineers of what we wanted it to do. So, sorry about that.
And one of my favorite aspects here is the layering, definitely home equity, because now, you know, everyone that is doing their mailers, or they can tailor their message specific to the properties that they're selling, or they can segment their mailers based on different parameters. Definitely home equity and ownership time are my two favorite ones to layer, because it just makes the messaging that much easier. For example, maybe Miami Gardens, maybe the 250 to 500 price range in terms of
and
Yeah.
And I love demos like this, Alfredo, because I could give you some tips. I never add a max to it because it doesn't hurt, right? So I would just say 250 in equity, and then you're not going to miss anybody. And then you're good to go right there. So I would encourage you not to put a cap on it, but ownership time is phenomenal here, because in a market like Miami, where some areas I've been told haven't recovered to pre-crisis levels, you can actually put a max of going back, right? You may want to cut it off to maybe 2014 or 2013, depending on how you know about the neighborhood. But go ahead, Alfredo. Sorry, I just get excited and start throwing more stuff.
It's good that we have you here. And I definitely foresee a bunch of more classes on Remine in the near future. So yeah, I do keep the 5 to 10 year and the 10 to 15 year both selected, and I layer that on top. So right now we have 213 results, and now we're down to 70. I probably wouldn't reduce it anymore. Maybe I could if I wanted to do a personal message, maybe to absentee owners. But what's cool about Remine is that you're able to budget yourself more efficiently, right? You don't have to hit an entire zip code, or you don't have to hit an entire area. Now you're only down to 70 mailers, which perhaps if you're tight on a budget, you don't have to actually go to a printer and have that paid for, but you can do it your own. You can print out your own letter at the office and mail these 70 people specifically with the message, look, we have buyers in the area. Now's the perfect time to cash out. You know, do you know what your equity is? Maybe refer them to a property valuation page, which you have. So that to me is very valuable, especially maybe if we have new agents starting out who are a little tight on budget. This is a great way to leverage data and squeeze the most out. I think now with so much technology and the consumer being able to actually know more than the agent in some regards, the messaging has to be very direct. So, you know, the shotgun approach of, you know, maybe blasting your entire farm area with one message is not working right now as best as you could tailor a specific message to maybe an absentee homeowner who's got renters, and maybe they're looking to cash out. Maybe they have no idea what the equity on their property is. So again, it's a great way to tailor the message specific to that person.
So real quick, since we got to these 70 properties, Alfredo, I just, especially because Teresa Campbell just asked the question, let me show you 3 different ways to do that mailing campaign. You hit select all, you would then hit cart. So what was the zip code again, Alfredo? So 3304.
33054, sorry.
Yeah, so I'd label it that real quick. I have those 70 properties. I'd add that to a cart. Once you go to that cart, you could do 3 different ways of looking at it. You can hit, like let's say your office has a generic piece of mail that all you're adding the label to, is you hit print mailing label, and those 70 addresses that Alfredo created for you guys live are now on this Avery Hess printable piece of paper. The only problem is I got so many tabs open, I just got to find which one I was on. So that's 1. 2, to Teresa's question, I could then go to Rocket Print and Mail, and those 70 properties that Alfredo identified are now being piped directly into this printing company. And then you would select which one you want. You'd set up an account one time, upload your logo, put in all your contact information, all your disclosures, and then you can send it that way. Or 3, I would hit export. And for this, I would literally only do, I would unselect all the information and then just do property address and mailing address, right? And hit export. And then I'm literally going to get exactly those 70 properties with just the rows of information I need. So you could either do a mail merge in Word, and you can literally stuff your own envelopes and have your kids help you lick the stamps. But again, this was designed for all levels of experience and how tech savvy you are. The greatest part for me is that I've had 76-year-old realtors in Texas come up to me and grab my arm and say, Leo, you built this for me. And then guys like Alfredo who are like, yeah, this is for me. But the reality is it's for everybody, because it's designed to let you pull the data out as you see fit. And I think That's about as much time as I want, Kevin. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I got a little bit more time if you guys want to do some more Q&A, which I think I has answered as much as I probably could have ever. But yeah.
I just want to jump in there real quick.
As much as you want.
One of the objections I get also when getting buyer leads is the question of credit. And this, what I love here is the soft pull for the credit is a great way to incentivize them to get on the site and start their journey. It's definitely something I'm going to be using now. You know, people are scared to pull a credit, run credit, or they say to me, oh, I want to fix my credit first. I think this is a great way to get a baseline on where they're at and then possibly redirect them to a lender or to help, you know, facilitate fixing their credit. So it's a great tool to have definitely in your tool belt.
Perfect. So a couple more questions that came off. What's the closed off MLS feature? That's actually an awesome feature that was user suggested. Somebody just asked that in the question. Closed off MLS means, because we're a public record system that layers information on top of that. So that's a very important distinction as how we look for stuff. So we find a sale, and the first thing we then try to do is conflate it to an MLS transaction. If we see that the public record transferred and it has a conflated MLS number, we then still flag it for you to be able to search it. But it just shows you that that property sold it off the MLS. So it could be a foreclosure. It could be a new construction sale. It could be a FSBO. So again, if you're about to go on a listing appointment, you may want to check that box as well. And if you're doing the CMA inside of our system and it finds one, it tells you, do you want me to include that in there? Because we've all been at that listing kitchen table and say, hey, look, the comps are between 350 and 400. And the seller's like, oh, my neighbor sold for 500. I was like, I'd never found this. And it's like, no, it was a FSBO. Well, now you can hold them honest. Everyone's asking about the difference between Pro and the system you used to have. Pro is substantially more robust. It has no caps on how many properties you can track, what you can export, the contact information. Most of these filters were behind, I would say more than half of them were behind the paywall, and all that functionality with Engage and the consumer stuff is all part of it. Is there a way to identify properties which death or divorce? Those are the two most coveted Ds in real estate technology and data. The answer is no. There is no actual consistent and scalable way to track either one of those. Divorces are filed at municipality levels that I can't find consistently. And death is the most protected file in data I've ever seen. The only person who has a perfect record of death is the IRS, and they only sell it 12 months after the deceased, specifically to keep it out of marketers' hands. A contact can be invited via phone number. Yes. And by the way, when you invite someone to the Engage part with the credit that Alfredo was referencing, if they do it from their cell phone, it only verifies like 2 more things, because Equifax actually tracks your cell phone as your most personal identifier of data, even more than your social security number is our cell phones. Because I always joke and say, let's unlock our cell phones and hand it to the person next to you, and we'll find out how personal cell phones are very fast. Alfredo, why don't you answer that last question so it's not coming out of my mouth? You're muted, bro.
I don't want to give a yes or no answer, but definitely this is
Listen,
my top
what I would
tier
look,
tool.
we're in unprecedented times financially. I think the next 6 to 12 months are going to test everybody. But one of the things that I find a ton of joy in is to be able to save you guys money where you don't have to spend money.
Yeah, absolutely. Leo, thanks so much for doing this. Like I said, we're definitely going to be pushing Remine a lot more. It's one of my favorite tools, and we look forward to doing more classes through YPN and the board and getting people to really increase their business and their farming through this software.
Yeah, no, and I'm the trainers, by the way, at Miami are some of the best I've found. They are really, really well versed in it. And they bring us questions. There's issues. Like, for example, one of the trainers actually said, hey, my father was a police officer that has requested their information pulled from the database. I got her a form. Her father's been pulled out of the database. So we are not this like large multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company that with 3,000 people. We are 80 people. I happen to move here. We have an office in DC, Toronto, and LA, but I'm very easy to get a hold of. And if you have a concern or a problem, I'm the first one who wants to hear about it.
Perfect. I also want to add your support. Remine has a bunch of videos. If you're just getting started, I definitely recommend them. They're less than a minute long, and they really walk you through the setup process for your landing page and all that. So they have good support, you know, on the fly if you need videos.
Absolutely. To that point, we had 11,000 support inquiries via our technology in April, and we had about 8,500 self-answered questions because we are kind of obsessed with that flow, Alfred. So appreciate you saying that.
Sure thing. Awesome. Thanks everyone for showing up.
Kevin, if you've got nothing else for us, I think that's.
There was one question about your email. Do you want to give that out?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. It's super easy to remember. leo@remine.com.
Very good. Well, this was a great class. We had a lot of engaged people. The attendance really didn't drop off at all. It shows how engaging and wonderful this information was. And we appreciate your time. And please, whenever you want to collaborate with YPN again, we'd happily have you.
Awesome. Just reach out. I'm literally down the street from you guys now. I used to always say that to the Bright agents in DC, but now you guys have me.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we're very lucky. And thank you everybody for attending. Once again, this will be up on YouTube and Miami Realtors Live later on today.
Awesome.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.